some way. With that, I'll stop, and I see a gentleman has his hand up. I'm not...
What we'd like to do is we have an hour set aside for the presentations and then hold all the questions to the end so that...
I did take around some note cards if you think of something and want to write it down right away so you don't forget.
Yeah, they're note cards so you can remember what you wanted to ask. We're not going to have them pass. We're not going to have you pass them forward. But let me just make sure that I'm clear. When the landman comes up to your property and says we have condemnation powers, they don't actually have them until they've gone through the entire process and FERC has given them the order. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah, he said that's correct. And before they get that order from FERC, they're going to come out and FERC is going to come out and have public meetings on scoping.
Yes, and typically those meetings are held, let's say, for example, you have a 300-mile pipeline. Those meetings are typically held at something like roughly a 50-mile interval. The idea is you can't hold one in every small town along the way, but you post notice. I think I forget the exact requirements, but I think you have to publish notice in each county paper of record and things of that sort. So there are opportunities to travel to these open houses, and of course, not all pipelines are 300 miles long. Some are, 20, 50, even 10 miles. But again, it's got to be interstate. So if you're looking at northern West Virginia, there's typically going to be a longer pipeline to be interstate between two states.
Thanks. And he mentioned something about negotiating. When they do come out to negotiate, if they go to a condemnation proceeding, they get fair market value for the land that is highest and best use. What we wish is that the fair market value is what is worth to them, as opposed to worth to you right now. But there's some when you are able to get the updated version of this, it talks about how you can use some of the leverage of the fact that they do have to go to condemnation to get even your value in the negotiations. So I would just refer you to that. I will now turn it over to Joe Cochran with the West Virginia DEP Division of Water and Waste Management, who is in charge of the recently, I'll let him tell you more, recently promulgated general permit, almost like rulemaking for soil erosion sediment control for pipelines, oil and gas pipelines.
Good morning. Again, I'm Joe Cochran with the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection. I do construction stormwater permitting for oil and gas projects in the state. A little bit about myself. I'm a graduate of West Virginia State College, now West Virginia University. I have a degree in chemistry. I worked with the health department for 5 or 6 years, testing water samples and milk samples, believe it or not. Then I went to the DEP, worked with the Watershed Assessment Group. I went and studied streams and stream impacts throughout the state. I did a lot of work in Preston County on Muddy Creek. Then I transferred over to permitting for construction stormwater. I did that for several years. I continued to do that, but I transferred a little lateral transfer when the oil and gas permit came to fruition. The permit was, as Dave mentioned earlier, name's Dave, correct? Make sure I've got the name right. It was passed June of last year. It will last until 2015, or 5 years from 2018, I'm sorry. And it covers transmission lines, gathering lines. Basically, you're trying to get the gas from point A to point B, typically from a well pad to a compressor station or to a processing facility. Sherwood gas plant is an example. Typically, what we permit is the permit will come into the office. It'll be a set of plan sheets and a narrative describing what they're doing, how they're doing it, where they're doing it, in regards to erosion and sediment controls. And that can be a very broad piece of information because there's so many different types of erosion and sediment controls. I'm sure a lot of you have been to like a Walmart or up here at the mall, you'll see sediment traps. There are now stormwater basins where they collect surface runoff, but they let the water out at a very slow rate. That's one example of erosion sediment control, silt fencing. But the plans will come into the office, and typically they'll show the right-of-way, where they're starting, where they're stopping. Typically it'll be about 50 to 75 feet wide, and they'll have all the erosion sediment control shown on there. Typically diversion ditches with outlet protection, silt fencing, super silt fencing. There's a lot of new manufactured products out there, filter sock being one. There's erosion eels, and there are machines that can actually fill these up as they go along. But they tend to weigh a lot, so they're not easily moved to get into position. After we review them, and it looks like it has a reasonable chance that it will actually work on paper, we will issue that permit for them to operate. That's where our business end of it stops. If it looks like it'll work on paper, then it's up to them, the company, to actually ensure that they do what they say they're going to do. If they're not doing what they say they're going to do, then it's up to enforcement to go out and make them do what they're supposed to do. I had a handout earlier that I passed around that had all the contact information that if anybody needs to contact someone if they have an issue regarding this. At the bottom is a link to our website that has all the information, permits, forms, and documents you might want to peruse at your leisure. I thought it would be a waste of paper to print off a stack about this thick for 100, 150 people. But there is a rationale of what people think this covers. It all boils down to muddy water, believe it or not. When they're out there digging their trench, putting their pipeline in, the rain's going to fall. It's going to make the mud turn to muddy water. It's going to go collect down to a low spot, typically an unnamed tributary or stream. And that's what this permit basically covers, discharge of muddy water. The oil division at my office, they strictly permit the well pad sites because the runoff associated with that could consist of a lot more than simply muddy water. It could consist of frac fluids, diesel, oils, that type of stuff, fuels. So that's permitted separately. And that was the rationale why the oil and gas permit came through construction and stormwater permitting, because we deal with strictly muddy water runoff. Prior to the permit issuance, over 2.5, 3 years, some companies were actually voluntarily submitting for permit coverage. Now, what does that mean? Prior to the issuance of the state permit, companies were exempt. They did not have to get permit coverage for construction stormwater permitting. Now, that's not to say they didn't need to get permits for other activities they were doing, stream crossings and so forth. But as so far as construction stormwater permitting went, they did not have to get permit coverage. And the type of activities that they were doing can disrupt a lot of land with what they're doing. Well pad sites, and I've seen several, typically aren't that large. They're very confined. They're in one localized area, whereas transmission lines can go for miles, as Mr. Neal said. In my office, typically the projects that we receive are very short, believe it or not. They're 1 to 3 miles. Now, that's not to say we don't get lengthy ones. We do, but the vast majority are very short transmission line projects. We do get other types of projects, compressor stations, processing plants, and he mentioned earlier the cooling places. But that's basically what we permit. If they're not doing what they say they're going to do, that's when it becomes an enforcement issue. And that's when the enforcement people have to go out and make them do what they need to do. As far as There's also a new thing coming as far as transmission lines, and that is the transport of natural gas liquids. These are being floated right now because it is transportation of a gas product. One is going to be from the Sherwood plant over into Ohio, but that is also another example of a transmission line project. You wouldn't think it; you'd think of gas as simply a gas, but there was a EPA definition ruling that it also falls under natural gas liquids as far as transportation goes. Some projects have to go to public notice. For that criteria to be met, a project has to do one of three things. First, they have to disrupt more than 100 acres of land. These are not uncommon. We get a handful of them a year, not a lot. Another condition is they will discharge to or upstream of a Tier 3 stream. Now, in this area of the state, that really is not an issue. The majority of the Tier 3 protected streams are over in the eastern part of the state, Pocahontas, Greenbrier counties, and that general area. There is a little bit of Tier 3 protected streams in the very tip of the northern panhandle, but that's not really a general issue as far as where this area is concerned. And also, if they're going to be actively disturbing the ground, trenching, grading activities for more than 1 year, 365 continuous days of disturbance. If those are met and a project does have to go public notice, the projects need to be submitted. 90 days prior to when they want to actually start construction. We'll get the projects in. We will not send the project to go to public notice until it's ready to be approved. Once it's ready to be approved, all their I's are dotted, their T's are crossed, their plan sheets look good, what they're doing looks good on paper, and we'll send it out to public notice. Now, as far as public notice goes, it has to run for 1 day in a local newspaper, and there's several local newspapers from Brooke County on down to Wetzel and Tyler counties, but it's only in the area that they're working that it has to go to public notice, and it only has to run for 1 day, and typically the more local papers will only run a public notice on a certain day of the week. They like to say they're going to do it on, they only do them on Thursdays of the second week of a month. So sometimes public notices can go ignored. But again, once public notice period has been satisfied, people are more than welcome to send in their concerns regarding the project. And again, that's where all the contact information becomes involved with that handout earlier. And we'll take those into consideration and answer those. If there is legitimate concern, then we'll change the project or have the project be altered slightly to meet those concerns. Honestly, we never get any public comments regarding these projects. I have yet to. I'm being serious. We have yet to receive a single comment on a single transmission line project. We never get them. And I'll wrap up soon because I honestly didn't know I was going to be here until Monday. My boss told me I needed to come up here because she was supposed to come here, but she had to go to another conference yesterday in Wheeling County, or in Wheeling in Marshall County. But if you need to get a hold of us, our contact information is there. If you have a question or an issue where you're out and you see a company working, we encourage you to contact the enforcement offices, all the local offices in the area that will pertain to the areas that you're working in are provided. You're more than welcome to contact me or my supervisors, and we'll try to answer your questions or to direct you to where you can get answers. But that's it. And now I'll give it back to Dave here for further consultation.
So if you see somebody working out there, how do you know whether or not they've actually applied for one of your permits or whether they're just being outlaws?
If they haven't applied for coverage, they are in violation, and they will be forced to get permit coverage. Prior to the issuance of the state permit, companies who didn't voluntarily get coverage were pursued, for lack of a better term, and encouraged to get permit coverage based on water quality violations. Enforcement was going out and getting these companies who were contributing to water quality violations, endangering waters of the state, and making them get permit coverage. After that started happening, companies started actively voluntarily submitting for permit coverage. And that's probably one of the main impetuses of getting the state permit issued. I was actually fairly surprised it got issued. I was at 50-50 on the bubble as to whether or not I would actually make it through the legislature. But if they're not operating without a permit, they're in violation, and enforcement should be called. At every construction site in this state, no matter what it is, for construction stormwater, they are required to have a public notice sign. For linear projects like transmission lines, putting a sign up can be problematic because you're not going to know where they're actually operating unless you just happen to come across a sign. And regulations require the sign to be 2 feet by 2 feet, which isn't very big. Typically, for linear projects, the construction sign will be placed at a public building, a courthouse, a town hall, a library, and that will have all the contact information for the companies. It's just the way it happens because, again, if you're out somewhere and you're honestly not gonna know what's going on as far as where this transmission line is going, because there's so many, they could be overlapped, and it might be this project, it might be that project, but the contact information is out there.
All right, thank you very much. I guess finally turn it over to Ed Wade, who I think needs no introduction, but I'll let him introduce himself. He's been doing this for a long time, and we appreciate it.
Hi, y'all. Thanks for coming. I want to thank the other panelists for taking time out of their day to be here to help educate us on a lot of this pipeline issue. Wow, good turnout here. That's nice. I guess why Julie invited me to come here to show a lot of my dirty pictures that comes along with this pipeline issues. A lot of people, when they sign for a pipeline, they think they're just signing for a pipeline, but actually they're not. There's a whole lot more that comes with these pipelines. So along with this presentation, you'll see some of my photos and Bill Hughes' photos, which will clearly see who's got the better photos, so we won't go there. But Wetzel County Action Group was founded back in '07 by Ray Renault. I mustn't forget to mention him. He's the one that got all this started, got me involved, and somehow along the way, Bill Hughes fell in there. And some people may know Bill Hughes. And for you that don't, that's okay, I guess. Water, something that we take for granted every day. Charleston just got a taste of it. Toledo just got a taste of it. 300-some thousand in Charleston, 500-some thousand Toledo. Something we really need to pay attention to. When these pipelines come to your area, you know, these heavy equipments just don't drop from the sky in here to work these right-of-ways. They've got to cut access roads, meaning fragmenting the forest, causing sediment erosion control issues along the way. And you know, a lot of gas companies will say, well, you know, it only take a few roads to get them in. Well, where I come from, it's taking a lot of access roads just to do gathering lines, let alone transmission lines. More of them built through the state property. They're just, I've said it 100 times, there's no place that these, you know, experienced operators can't put these equipment. It's just amazing to go out there in the field and watch them. But it takes equipment like this to make some of these right-of-ways, actually all these right-of-ways in these hills. And the terrain here is much different from other places out west where a lot of the larger transmission lines are. And now we have 2 or 3 pipeline companies that are proposing a 42-inch lines across our national forest into Virginia down into North Carolina, which I hope really don't go, but if it does, it's going to be bad. So again, along will come the pipe trucks running these right-of-ways. I guess I only got like 20 minutes, so I've got to travel as fast as I can. I'm hoping this presentation will trigger some questions along the way. Just write them down on the cards that Julie give you. And these fine gentlemen over here can answer all of them. This is the beginning of a pipeline in behind my place. A lot of you might know of Rocky Run. It used to be a beautiful place to visit. And even at this point, I mean, who would want to visit? And this is just the beginning of it. This here, I believe, was a 10-inch line, liquid petroleum line that went through here that they said ruptured or the hillside slipped out. But there's some of the stuff that bothers me that really gets permitted. I think a lot of the permitting that goes on, the people that are passing these permits really don't have a clue when a contractor comes in and says, we're just going to do it this way, we're going to do it that way. So what I like to do, I go out in the field and I document this stuff and say, really? Is this stuff really truly being permitted? It's crazy. So I'll just give you a little taste here about what's allowed. As you can see, they're drilling holes. They'll drop 4 sticks of dynamite per hole down in here. That consists of 8 pounds of dynamite per hole. And I don't understand why they're not doing a pump around on this creek. Dry it out. This limestone coming out here, I'm sure it affects aquatic life and everything in it. How they got this permitted this way, I'll never know. Or maybe somebody can answer that along the way. But this goes on for a while. This is about a 1/4 mile downstream from this activity. Still, it hasn't fell out yet. But anyways, it much farther, but this kind of activity goes on and on a daily basis, and just a lot of people aren't around to document it. It just shows them loading the holes for the dynamite, preparing the blast. There's our creek bed after the blast. It's raised up 10, maybe 12 foot places. Here again, there's no pump around. Why? Why no pump around? Why was this permitted? Why not a directional drill? Maybe somebody can answer this. Liquid petroleum. They say the hillside slipped, caused this line to rupture. I say the high water pulled on the line, ruptured the line, then the line blowed out and made the hillside slip. But who knows the truth, right? This blowout actually killed all the aquatic life in the creek for roughly about a mile. I've documented fish floating, crawdads, and some other stuff I don't even know what was floating. Sediment erosion control. It's working real well, isn't it? Huh. It's not the way I'd control it. This is where it blowed out. And the whole goal of that was the Jersey barriers and the plastic was to catch everything that come off the hill, off the pipeline, in a containment. Then they dip it out, put it over on another containment. There's actually testing the soil because it's full of the liquid petroleum, whatever makes up all that stuff. But this particular place got a lot of attention after it blowed out and had fish kill, and still today, roughly a year later, they are now just setting the pins and pouring the concrete to support the hillside. It's just another overview of some of the stuff that will possibly occur. I'm not saying every time there's a pipeline that goes through, but this is stuff that's subject to happen, and I've seen a lot in my area. There's a stretch on this pipeline right here. There's 5 slips. This is the most major one in probably 3 miles. 5 slips. That's a lot. So believe it or not, there's actually guys inside this white limestone dust. They're drilling holes to put stainless steel rods in. They're going to grout them, stainless steel mesh, and everything. It's just this one area right here. You see 3,000 cubic yards of dirt to be removed and taken care of, treated, and put back in. Just a little under $3 million. So money seems not to be an object. So the little fines that comes along with these, sure as heck it's not hurting them either. So a lot of critters along the way are affected by this that people don't know. I mean, when you go digging huge trenches through the woods, and you know what time the pipelines are put through the wooded areas, you know, birds nesting, all kind of animals giving birth different times of the year, how they cross a 6-foot deep trench when they get stuck down in it, you know, can't get out, just get disconnected from their mother. And of course, some people have seen these slides here before. Snow Mountain too steep. I've seen them take these D8 Dozers and hook 6 and 7 of them at a time, clear over the top of the mountain down the other side just to hold one excavator to dig a cliff of rocks out. It's amazing the way these operators handle this stuff. Of course, now there is accidents along the way. This is just a little 10-inch gathering line, and this right-of-way now looks good. It's growing green grass in the whole 9 yards. A little bit of slip here and there, which is typical. But they're getting ready to come right back through and do this again, putting another line. Why didn't they do it the first time? Put all of them in. This used to be solid woods. This is a 24-inch transmission line right away. Here again, remember, you sign for a pipeline, a lot more comes with it and a lot more goes with it. This guy, what is he doing? Now what concerns me about this, and I think some people have mentioned this before, he ain't even got a life jacket on. You know? What if he falls out of there? It don't look like he's buckled. Anything wrong with that picture there, Josh? Joe. Willy Wonka factory is up at the head of this hollow. Gas activity. This stream run this collar, maybe a little darker, for like 4 years. Why? Somebody was letting it happen. Temporary crossing that Bill has worked a lot of issues with. Pipes on limestone, or creeks raise, or rivers raise. Stuff floods, limestone washes out. You think they go back and gather up all this limestone? No. Absolutely not. They just put more pipes, more stone. They make it every day. Affects our streams. And I believe it changes the pH in the water. Too much limestone, right? I mean, I don't know too much about this. Entering stream. Looks like they are literally entering the stream. Sediment erosion control isn't working too well on this. That pretty much speaks for itself. If I'm going too fast, just say, hey, slow down. Oh, right here they've done a dynamite blast too. And it was so powerful that the PVC that they used to shim the holes with is actually up in the trees above here, impaled into the limbs. It's pretty neat. I should have showed a picture of that. Anybody know what this is? Bill, you remember where this is? Quiz, Bill, real quick. 3 seconds. You know where this is? Okay, that's what I thought. Anybody know what's going on in this pipeline right away?
Looks like a strip job.
Pretty close, huh?
Well, the picture's too blurry to tell it.
You need your glasses. Put your glasses on, Bill. This is a spot where they're ready to do a pump, directional drill. Behind me here is a 2-lane highway. Then beside the 2-lane highway will be a creek. So they're supporting a flat place to put their drill to drill under everything, which I think is the way to go with all stream crossings. Once it's gone, it don't come back. Remember that when you sign for it. Just some different shots. This is Bill's specialty about air pollution that he preaches to me all the time about. Compressor stations comes along. This is my first flight ever in a plane. And to see this, made you want to take another one right away. This is Pleasant's compressor station. Up in Marshall County, it's West County line, Pleasant Ridge. Miller compressor, Johnson Ridge, Wetzel County. Well, we debated whether it was Wetzel or Marshall, didn't we? Yeah.
Actually splits both counties.
Yeah, splits both counties. I don't know who's collecting the taxes. But, you know, then you come with your coolant systems that come in with your compressor stations, you know, then you got your compressors, so forth and on. Then if you're lucky enough, you will have a compressor put close to your house. It's a good alarm clock. One compressor. I don't know whether the noise is coming through on the speakers or not. Can you hear that, Beth? You can, if Beth can hear it, I know anybody can hear it.
Put your mic up to your...
What are you saying, Beth?
Put the mic up to the speaker.
It was right in my ear.
I can't hear you, Beth. But anyways, I didn't want to just pick on one compressor station, so I decided I would just go ahead and do another one.
Where is your speaker?
I have no idea. I don't have no idea what a speaker is. I just found this computer. I don't know whose computer this is. But anyways, they're loud, they're annoying, and they'll keep you awake at night. But a lot of these compressor stations, we all know, have gaskets. Gaskets leak, and this gases that leak off these are pretty flammable. So these guys here had a little incident, as you can see, because something was leaking somewhere, friction was made, a spark, and ignited that leak and caused this. How am I doing, Dave? Okay? 5 minutes? Holy cow. Pig launcher. Dominion pig launcher. Where there's pipelines, there'll be pig launchers, there'll be metering stations, there'll be turn-up, there'll be valve controls, there'll be valve settings. Don't think it's just all below ground. This stuff will decorate the ridges. I guess you could paint them different colors, but I doubt it. Just another facility along the way that I've documented. Just numerous, proving the point that it's just not pipeline that comes with it. Now this is one that, you know, we can all appreciate. I mean, if they have trouble in a line, freezes up in the wintertime, they have to keep these lines open and free. And I don't know where my speaker is on this thing. But this is the venting of, is it playing? Can't see.
Yeah, it's playing.
It's playing.
But they're venting the pipeline out here. I mean, I'm quite a ways off on the other side of the hill, and I can taste this and smell it when the wind's carrying it to me. But this goes on, and the roaring of it is just crazy. I mean, it's easy to hear. I mean, they clearly don't know that I'm there, or they'd be shutting it off. You know, this has happened time and time again. But as you can see how it's going up, then it's falling back down. Here again, you report it, you know, they check into it, the gas company says it was an emergency situation, that's what they had to do to keep from something tragic happening. Another pig launcher along the way. Your metering stations will come along with this. Now this here, pay attention to these couple valves right here, these two. Of course, when they weld all this line together and so forth and on, they got to check the pressure of the welds to make sure it'll hold the pressure of the gas. So what they end up doing, they'll utilize our local waters out of our streams, fill the pipeline full of water, put pressure behind it, hold X amount of pressure for X amount of time to make sure that it works. Everybody see that? But this goes on for quite some time. I'm sure that's probably a management water situation somewhere where there's Anyways, here's another one. They have issues with the line when they blow off. You can see that's not perfectly clean water laying there. This particular spout right here was involved in blowing all this stuff out onto the ground. Along with that, I came across this. Same spot, same pipeline. This whole holler was full of gas. It got so bad that I literally had to get out of there. I couldn't take it anymore, so I set my camera down. I leave. The guy you see beside the tanker on the left is actually looking for me. But he don't know I left my camera and just went on. Because I couldn't stand to be there. It was bad. And I don't know how in the heck he's standing it. It was really bad. But that's ice on the side, you see, and it's like a 90-some degree day. That's ice on the side of the tank. And I think we've come a long ways with them burning the brush along the side of the right-of-ways, I think. Or are they still doing it? Anybody see them still burning brush along the sides? That's not good. Sediment erosion control issues. I mean, what's in play, what's in regulation would work, does work, as long as it's maintained. But this is clearly not being maintained. This stuff was like 16 inches deep sediment running down the pipeline right away, pushing the silk fence over, going into the creek. It's clear again to see where the issue is upstream. If you want to find a pipeline construction site in West Virginia, follow the stream. The brown one. This is another one they've just starting to completely get done after a year of construction. It slipped out. That is a beautiful photo. I don't see Bill's name on it.
Lower left corner.
Lower left. So, I mean, here we are again, a sediment control issue, flowing down. I mean, it was working. They got a 90-foot boom on the other side of the creek. They'd reach over, dip it out. It was working real well, but they decided to take the weekend off. This is just another photos of 42-inch pipelines that some of the parts of West Virginia is going to have to deal with later on in life, or sooner than not. Another pipeline right-of-way clearing. This photo, I believe, was taken in 2010. But, we've come a long way since then, right? This was taken less than 2 weeks. Have we come a long ways or not? To me, cats away, the mice will play. What you see here when I come across this, and I know these guys, I've got the familiar bases with them by name, went there and I said, what the Sam hell is going on here? The operator said, well, we're putting this bridge in so we can work this right away. I said, yeah, I can see that. I said, why aren't you doing a pump around? He said, we don't need it. I said, well, what if somebody official shows up? We'll have this done before they get here. That's exactly what he told me. We'll be done before they get here. So anyways, that was that. I don't know how or what happened there. Okay, we did that one. Watch that. Bill's famous for his timestamp, date timestamp. Me and a few other people don't approve of it, but this one time, Bill, I needed this to show. Look at the time on this picture. We are downstream from this activity, okay? So it took me a couple minutes to walk around on the other side of the construction site. Look how clear that water is. See the difference? This should not be occurring. The other side of the bridge. The upstream side of the bridge. Why? Why is this occurring? And there's the result of it, a quarter mile downstream. Just another perfect example. Anybody know where the pipeline work's going on at? I ain't going to ask you, Bill. Where's the sediment erosion control here? On the side of the bridge? Where's it here? I don't see it nowhere. Anything that runs off is going into the creek. You think this little buoy here is going to stop anything?
It clearly shows it isn't. It's got some leaves held up. It's working pretty good there. Just another right-of-way issue. You know, we all know here, living here in the gas field nowadays, it's, you know, it's an everyday thing. Now this directional bore, I've been keeping an eye on it. It's actually a pretty good job. But of course, you know, look, it's right beside the main road. A lot of eyes see this. I mean, look how well done this is. This is very good. I was just by there the other day after hard rain. This washed down, this filled up, overflowed, pushed this sediment fence down. The creek was full. They had 12, 15 guys down there shoveling. So they was like, you know, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing because it's right by the road. Dave says I'm done. Thank you.